everybody. This is the Central Hill Campus Phase 1 Community Meeting number 2. If you're here for another meeting, you're in the wrong place. So I am Courtney Kirk, the project manager for this phase of the design and overseeing the construction of Central Hill Phase 1. I am part of the OSPCD department as streetscape and public space planner and landscape architect, registered in Massachusetts, and a Ward 3 resident. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about is, those of you, I see some new faces that weren't here during our first community meeting. I'll give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to hand it over to our design team, which they are SMMA. They are the design team that is also working on the high school building project. We have Alex Pitkin, Laura Monies, and Jack Dombrowski, who will be walking you through various pieces of the design. So this is community meeting number 2. We had our first meeting in July. In July, we went over some very schematic design ideas related to the playground and the war memorials and the civic space in front of Memorial Hall. After this meeting, we are going to be tightening up the design, getting it to the right budget, making sure that we pick out all the right materials, and then we'll have a third meeting to show you the design as it's going to be built. Right now, we are planning on completing that work by the end of this year so that we can bid the construction work early winter 2020 and then start the construction spring 2020. The goal is that the Central Hill Phase 1 will sync up with the high school project so that the east side of the Central Hill block will be completed very closely around the same amount of time. So people can get into the high school, can get into the library, and everything that is currently fenced off for construction will be open. So the work from Phase 1 came about because we did a Central Hill campus master plan last year. And a master plan basically just establishes a way for the city to proceed in a logical fashion to make decisions about how we're going to implement the master plan. So Phase 1 is the pieces that are in purple and blue. Those are the pieces that are part of Phase 1. So this is at the front of the library, the front of the high school, including the high school concourse and the front of Memorial Hall. We are also picking up the intersection of Walnut and Medford, the intersection of Walnut and Highland, and 2 mid-block crossings on Highland. This will ensure that we have safe routes to the high school and the library. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the design team, Laura Monies. She's going to be walking you through the more detailed design elements of Phase 1.
Hi, so I'm going to give you an update of, sorry.
Turn it up, can't hear you.
I'm going to give you an update of what we've been.
Move forward. Come closer.
Comfortable here, I have a little more, please.
An update of what we've been doing with the design. So here's an overall plan of the most recent design. On the right side in front of the library, we have an open green space for events like movie nights, just open recreation, that kind of thing. the recreation of the Central Hill Playground, which is still out there, but not for much longer. Some plaza space for enjoying the library outside. The concourse in front of the high school, which will have we will reincorporate the Korean War Memorial and the Vietnam War Memorial, and we'll also preserve some space for a future memorial. And what is now Gold Star Plaza, which is in front of the War Memorial Building. So originally from the campus plan, that was going to be the honor roll reincorporated into the design, but between the campus planning phase and the design phase, the city and the Veterans Commission decided to go with a little bit different idea of Gold Star Plaza that will honor Somerville Gold Star service members and modern war eras. So the areas in yellow, I'm sure it's a little bit difficult to see here, but the areas in yellow are within our limit of work, but our scope that's actually being built by the high school. So it's a little bit tricky to delineate exactly where our line is versus the high school line. So basically what will be done are some landscape areas, the top of the driveway for the high school concourse, some retaining walls, and then some light fixtures and signage. That's all part of the high school scope, but lies within inside of our limit of work. We know trees are a hot topic in Somerville, so we just want to get that one right out of the way. The trees in light green are trees that are being installed as part of the high school scope. The trees along the perimeter, and again, it's a little difficult to see, but have a dark green outline, are existing street trees that, again, this project is not touching. The other green trees within the limit of work are the campus trees. There will be 30 trees remaining. And the 2 trees in red are 2 trees that will go away or be removed as part of this project. The tree in front of the library was identified by the city as a tree that needed to be removed due to recent storm damage. So one tree over here in front of the War Memorial Building we will need to remove so that we can accommodate the plaza and accommodate an accessible route from Highland up into the campus.
Could you name the trees? Yes, I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Committee. I would like, for you to identify the trees, the species.
Well, okay.
Could you do that?
Right this second. I don't have
At the end?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I can get that information.
The tree that's in front of the War Memorial
Yeah.
is an ash tree, and that's the tree that we're removing to accommodate an accessible entrance up into the high school. And then the tree that's been designated a hazard tree in front of the library is a Callery pear. And just a recent storm 2 months ago, it dropped a significant branch and it was very unbalanced and not very safe for us to continue to keep it in place next to the new playground.
Thank you, Courtney.
I have a question. I'm a little disoriented. I see now that there are now only 2 trees in the area where the playground was. Where is that on this map?
So the playground is not in the same space.
You're not talking about the playground space right now, is that correct?
Let me ask you a question again, because I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
The old playground space is right.
So the current
There.
location of the
And the new
playground is, it's going to close and the new location is going to be in front of the library.
So the playground
I
is
see.
shifting location a bit.
I see, okay.
Yeah, so the existing playground is more here,
Okay,
and the new one is going close in front of the library more. So it's
Okay.
not in the exact same spot.
okay, so I see in the new playground area in front of the library, there's a number of trees marked as existing, is that correct?
Correct.
In the front lawn?
It's in front of the library.
In front of the library, those are the small Callery pears, okay.
And those are staying.
Those are
It's just
staying,
the
it's only
two
that
trees
one that's
that are
being
red.
removed.
Only
That
the
are
two
being
in red.
And why is the one over there being removed in front of the War Memorial? again?
This one here.
Yeah,
To accommodate an accessible route up from Highland through the plaza, the Gold Star Plaza into campus. The grades are really, really difficult.
okay. Okay, I will have questions later, but
Okay.
you certainly feel free to proceed. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So we will be proposing 73 new trees. That's the good news. Sad that we have to lose two, but we will have 73 new trees incorporated throughout the campus to help repopulate the tree population.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask, what kind of trees are you going to bring in?
We haven't decided on specific species yet, but we'll be working with the city to determine that.
Okay, and what size will they be? Because some of these trees are a very substantial size right now.
Right. Well, we will get as big as trees as the budget will allow us to get.
So if I can add, that the two trees that we're removing, they total 29.1 diameter breast height measurement. And if we average the new trees, 2-inch caliper, 73 trees, we're gaining 146 caliper inch of tree. And then the existing trees to remain, we're maintaining 433.4 diameter breast inch of tree.
Okay, not
Phase one.
combined, the two trees that are being removed, what are they separately though? Is one of them small and one of them large?
The one in the Gold Star Plaza is 9.5 dBH, and the hazard tree is 19.6.
So it's a big tree.
Yes.
It's a big tree, okay. And let me also say that if you replace these with 2-inch caliber trees, it's nowhere near the same tree replacement. You are not replacing what we have now. There's actually no way to replace what we have now.
So if you're using an average of 2-inch caliper for new trees, 73 new trees equals 146 inches. And
I
we're
understand, but the height
We're removing 29.1
and the
inches.
breadth and the number of leaves and the amount of air that it cleans and the amount of rain that gets sucked up, all of those things. Hi, Alex. Sorry, all of those things will not be the same. They are not being replaced.
Yes.
I want you to acknowledge that they are not being replaced, and we have a problem here with air and flooding.
Well, hopefully we can work with the design team to incorporate large canopy trees as part of the new proposed trees. And the tree canopy that we are keeping is quite significant. I would say 433 inches is pretty significant for our tree cover.
That is one measurement of the value of a tree, but there are many more measurements, and I think it's really short-sighted to say that's the only way we're going to measure the value of the trees to Somerville and to its residents. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So a little bit more about the space in front of the library. As I mentioned, we want to keep a lot of variety of options for recreation, be it passive or active. Varieties of seating for all the different users. We have young folks, we have groups of daycare with toddlers coming in, we have children coming in for story time, we have older folks coming in, we have teenagers coming in. So we want to be able to provide a variety of seating options and ways for users to use the space.
Is this the time to voice concerns about the way you've structured the walkways to the library? Because what you've done is cut off the direct routes and taken people on paths that don't look like they're going to lead to the front door. So the library loses a lot of visibility in this new design.
Can we talk about that after?
Sure. When will you have dialogue?
Well, we will have discussion after the presentation. Within the playground, we will be incorporating existing trees, as we just talked about. At Winter Hill Community School, there were some existing trees, and we are looking at that as an example of ways to incorporate the trees into the play space. At an earlier public meeting, residents decided that a nature-based theme for the play space was what the community desired, so we are working toward that. We will be incorporating nature-inspired materials and colors, and certainly actual natural materials where we can. And here's some examples of,
I got a question. Who designs these playgrounds? Are they in the military?
I'm sorry?
They look like an obstacle course. The playgrounds look like obstacle courses.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's all different types of play equipment, so.
No, I'm not worried about the plants or the trees. I'm worried about some kid rolling down a pile of rocks.
The play equipment is all certified for safety. We work with a company who,
Yeah, they did that up on North Street. They put some crazy foam on the ground. And kids still bounce, but not that good anymore when they go up a net. That ain't a playground. Swing, slide. A cargo net is not a playground. That's training for the military. Been there, done that.
I just want to say I'm really excited to see this kind of a playground, because I think a playground that just has swing sets and the climbing structure is not very creative for kids, and maybe when by the time they're 6 years old they outgrow it. And if you give them something like this, kids of all ages, teenagers, even grown-ups, can enjoy sitting on the rocks and running around and having their own freedom to figure out how to play with the space. So I think it's a much more creative and interesting kind of a playground. So thank you for doing that.
But it also leads to a problem with visibility of the library if you create large structures and berms. So we've got trade-offs to make.
so as I was saying, we will be working to incorporate nature-inspired materials and colors and actual natural materials where we can, as much planting as we can, and incorporating green space into the play space. We will have opportunities for seating for parents, grandparents, the daycare staff that bring their toddlers over to play during the daytime. We do have some slope in the play space. There's about 6 feet of grade change. So we will definitely be working with the slope to incorporate that into slope play. So some existing parks around Somerville, again, there's opportunities for climbing and slides and grabbing onto the rope and challenging themselves that way.
I have a question. Can you tell me what the square footage is on the playground? Like how many feet by how many feet?
I don't have the number right off the top of my head. It's like
So we're roughly trying to achieve a quarter of an acre of play space.
And what's the existing playground?
It's 0.21 acres.
And again, these are some of the elements we've heard from the residents that are desired for the play space. A splash pad for when it's hot outside to cool off a bit. Toddler swings, we know that there's a lot of the 2 to 5 age group coming into the play space. So the equipment will predominantly be geared for the 2 to 5 with some elements for the older 5 to 12 age group. We will have some elements that are geared for children who may want to hide away or not be completely engaged in the play and be able to watch the other kids play. Again, color schemes, we will work with a palette that's replicating natural or colors found in nature. And that brings us to accessibility. As I mentioned, and as you all probably know, this site is very challenging with topography. So from the beginning of the high school master plan through the Central Hill campus plan, we have worked to maintain accessible routes across campus to provide access from the streets to all the destination points within campus. So within our site, you can see all the routes available, all the access points along Highland, Walnut, Medford. The routes up through, this is a very steep hill here. This is part of the high school project, but it's provided an accessible route from Medford up to campus that direction. We have lots of routes connecting all the way through campus. In the high school drive area, we will have, this is part of the high school scope again, but there are 2 accessible parking spaces. And then we added a loading zone for drop off and pick up at the library, being able to pull up, drop off your book, unloading a group of children, etc. So that leads us into wayfinding, which Jackson will explain.
Hello everyone, I am Jack Dombrowski. I'm a graphic designer at SMMA, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about wayfinding throughout the site. We've split up the different kinds of signs as 4 separate levels, level 1 and 2, or well, level 1 being just general building markers. That's our largest sign. That's going to be like Central Hill Library, Central Hill High School. Most of those are already included within high school scope. Level 2 for vehicles, these are roadside pylons marking entrances for vehicles, delineating what you can access from those entry points. Both of those, mostly level 1 and level 2, are both included in the high school scope. I'll mark one that's not. The level 3 is directory signage, so maps of the space when you approach the site, understand being able to actually map out the site and figure out where you're trying to go. And then level 4 is going to be for each of the memorials that are being moved to the site, so giving some general information. I'll touch on that in a second. So signage locations, as you can see, these ones that are grayed out are part of the high school scope. All the ones in color which correspond to the previous slide are the signs that we are putting in. So mostly level 3 and level 4, with the exception of the library sign on the corner of Highland and Walnut. Yep, that's just the library, central library sign. You'll notice we placed the level 3 signage, all the directories, at strategic entry points along the mid-block crossings along Highland, and then throughout major viewpoints and intersections and pathways throughout the site, or at least throughout this portion of the site that we're focusing on for phase 1. And then the level 4 signage delineating each of the individual monuments or memorials as we go along the path. So level 1 signage that I said, this is part of the high school scope. This one, the Somerville Central Hill Library, is basically a carbon copy of the high school sign, just with the library's name on it instead. Level 2 signage, this is an example of what those look like based on the high school sign. These are also part of the high school scope, so delineating, marking what is accessible from that entrance. The level 3 signage, that will be new for this scope. These are based on the other designs, but these, as far as materiality and geometry, we've got on the front side, which will be the first side that you actually engage with upon entering the site, that has the map and, of course, markings for all of the entrances, so all the various entrances to the Somerville High School. There's the Fatville, and etc. And then on the flip side, we've done something a little bit more artistic and informative. As Laura mentioned, topography is a very specific challenge to this site, but it's really a challenge for development across Somerville. And so what we've done here is we've started to use that as an informational sharing opportunity and explaining, so showing the topography of certain of Somerville's 7 hills, and then explaining how that works, what has happened on those hills, maybe some background. That content is yet to be decided, but it's the general idea for now. And then level 4 signage, that's the memorial signage, so these will be relatively small, less intrusive. If you're engaging with it, you're engaging with that monument. And this will just say which monument it is, what it is for, maybe who designed it, where it's been in the past, now that all of these are coming together. And then those will be a part of this, but what we're doing is, and something to keep in mind, is this is the first time these monuments are all going to be located on one site. And so what we're doing is generating this linear path along Highland that, well, chronological path along Highland that goes from the Civil War Memorial all the way to a space delineated for a future memorial for present warriors. So 6, 7, and 8 are the memorials that we are currently looking at. 6 being the new Gold Star Plaza. 7 and 8 are the Korean and Vietnam memorials, respectively. And then 9 there is a space for an additional memorial to be built later on. And so for our phase, these are the areas that we are focusing on for this walk. And so because it's the first time that all these memorials are being located in one place, we wanted to create an experience that spanned across all of them so that you can experience each memorial individually, engage with them individually as you would in the past, but also be able to go from one to the other and have a greater experience across all of them, something that ties them all together. And so this is sort of the path that we have now, and it would continue out on this side, but we have it encircling Gold Star Plaza and then along the Korean and Vietnam memorials there. The idea right now is really to generate a sense of space with this. So we're trying to give these memorials some context in the greater, in the Somerville area. And to support that, we're also trying to use vegetation and strategic tree placements and tree species to support that either.
So looking at the Vietnam and Korean War Memorial, this is the Korean War Memorial, and you can see from the existing photos here, the boundary wall, and then the large arcing wall with the wall caps that have the found objects. The boundary wall will be located within the plaza space, and then the wall cap with the found objects will enclose the back side of it. There will be seating within that space. Each of those smaller plaza spaces has permeable paving that will be found elsewhere on campus. So we're really trying to bring the same palette of materials that's found across campus and continue it throughout. We will have some, again, vegetation, as Jack mentioned, surrounding the memorials to really just help make each memorial space feel like you're in its own spaces.
Yeah, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial, there are 5 benches down there.
I'm getting there. I got you. So the vegetation is meant to, help just provide a little bit of sense of space for respectful visitation and feel a little bit separated but not totally enclosed. And continuing on the path to the Vietnam War Memorial here, the stone piece will be within the middle, and I know this is hard, we don't have an actual picture of the benches, but we do know where they are. They are going to get reincorporated.
And also, they face it the right way this time.
Okay.
Cambridge, it goes towards Cambridge, and some of them stayed here. They got it up there and put it up there before Cambridge is aiming at Medford. It was backwards.
Yeah.
It has to aim at Cambridge, because those are the ones that died from Cambridge. That's what it represents.
Yeah. We'll make sure that.
And also, they're gonna put it back the way it was in 1982 with all the cobblestone around it? Or is that gonna be just a hot granite, or is it gonna be concrete? Because that was all encased with cobblestone from Charlestown. And all that was, all the bricks were set in it all the way around. Is that cobblestone gonna be put back into it?
I didn't know about the cobblestone.
All that stone, when they dismantled them, they moved it for the second time. That was supposed to have gone up the city yard also, and I hope it's there to put it back the way it was when we designed it in 1982.
We'll look into that. Hadn't heard about the cobblestones before.
We've been working very closely with Brian and his team, so we'll definitely.
Brian doesn't
check
know
on
about the
that.
memorial anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Can I suggest that you consult with the VFW in Dilboy? Because I'm sure there's a lot of expertise and concern there. And it might be good to have a focus group about how people would like to have this be, rather than you guys making the decisions.
We didn't make this.
Okay, well, rather than somebody other than the vets in the city making the decisions.
I am the commander of the Billboard Post.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Well, there you go. So I think that,
The monument that's up there in front of City Hall, you need to correct it because they got the wrong Congressional Medal of Honor on it, so you have to change it.
so you've got
If
it.
you're gonna put these all right, it's the wrong one. When they designed that and put the second one back on, I have the original plaque on our post. They put up a second one on that monument up there, and it's wrong.
Okay. This is
So
on
whoever
the-
designed it, they put the wrong Congressional Medal of Honor on it, because
Is
there's
this
3
on the
Congressional
Dilboy
Medal of Honor
West?
designs.
Is it
Excuse
on the
me?
Dilboy monument?
Yes, the ones in front of City Hall. They got the Marine Congressional Medal of Honor on it, and he was in the Army. So somewhere along the line, someone in City Hall screwed that up. So you're gonna have to correct that, put the correct Congressional Medal of Honor
All
on it.
right, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I hope so, because it's wrong.
And that's not part of this phase of work either.
I'm just telling you
Yep.
that.
Good
Lady
information.
asked about the,
Yep.
So where was it? Okay, so, Vietnam War Memorial here with the benches around the outside, and again, some vegetation just to provide a buffer from Highland. It sits pretty far off Highland anyway, but we wanted just to feel enclosed as if you're in that space with only the memorial. And the Gold Star Plaza, this is something we haven't developed quite as much yet, so we're working with the city and with the Veterans Commission to really understand how they envision this space and how we could design it. We do know that, like as I mentioned, it will have the names of all of these Somerville Gold Star service members, and it will also have some sort of other elements within the plaza that will demark modern war eras. At the Star, there will be 6 flagpoles, one for each branch of the military, and in the center, the American flag. Again, we will have some vegetation vis-a-vis existing trees, and we will be adding some more along Highland, adding some more trees up further back on the plaza, and then we will have these columnar trees flanking either side of the plaza, acting as a backdrop, almost standing guard over the plaza. So the names for the Gold Star service members, there will be walls here. So when you're within the plaza, you'll be there to see the names. And this plaza will accommodate approximately 300 people for various ceremonies that will be held there.
what's happening to the honor roll? Where are all those names going from the World War I and the Korean vets? Where are all those names going?
The honor roll has now, it's been, to my knowledge, been determined to go inside 1895.
Yeah, so the honor roll will stay in place until the city can plan the renovation, finishing the renovation of the 1895 building and City Hall. And the idea is that the Veterans Commission will have an office in the 1895 building, and at the entry point of the Veterans Office, they want a digital wall to represent the wall of honor outside, so that they can add the names that they haven't been able to add before, and make it more of an interactive piece. If someone wants to research a particular name, that there will be a back-end database affiliated with this digital wall of honor. that can provide more information than just what we have today.
Does that mean that the Vietnam veterans gonna be put in there this time?
From what I understand, they want to include everybody on the digital wall of ours.
I've been hearing that from 4 different mayors all these years. And I've been waiting 50 years since getting out of Vietnam, and we were told, I was told back then, and I'm still waiting. There's a lot of others still waiting too. Because we deserve to be up there too with our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that we can include all names on the digital
Because
wall.
some of the complaints that we've got, that they don't know where to get the names of all the people that served from Somerville that went overseas. Well, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to the State House. When we got our bonuses, they came from the city of Somerville, and they'd be listed up there. So I would hope this time, after 50 years for the next generation, we'll have our names up there. Because I got aunts, I got my uncles and my father's up there also, with a lot of my friends up there, and Cliffy's too.
That's
You know.
great information, and I'll definitely pass it on to Brian.
And I have one other question. You're talking about the other memorial that's down in Union Square that you're going to move? The one that's the World War I? A lot of you don't know, that belongs to the people in Union Square. That does not belong up there. That came from the people from 1-2 right after World War I. They paid for that, and they had that built, and they put it in there in the square. I know it's been moved 4 times. I grew up in Lincoln Park down there. I believe that should be left down in Union Square where it belongs with the community down there. Because there's other monuments down there also. Are you going to move all those up to City Hall? From the Revolutionary War, there's stone bricks down there in Plaza. You going to move all that up there also? Or are they going to stay in Union Square?
I believe they're staying in Union Square. The Veterans Commission, as part of the master planning process, they collectively decided that the Union Square World War I memorial would come up to Central Hill.
And also, at the present time up there, I don't know where the stone went, but it was American Legion Post 377. That should go back down where it belongs to, down in Glen Street. That's where that post was. And also, there's another one up there that should go in front of Summer and Bow Street from the people in Union Square. That is up in Concourse too. That should be moved back to where it belongs, within the community. And that's where it should stay, in the historic site. Not keep moving all these monuments. They go different parts of the city. They have no idea what's on these monuments.
This is great information. I would love if you can stick around at the end if I can get your contact information, please.
Myself and Mickey Kurt were the ones that designed that Korean memorial because we only had $50,000 the city gave us, and we designed it up there. And another question is, how are you going to protect these monuments? Are there going to be security cameras up there to see if the skateboarders and everyone else doesn't ride on it and destroy it like they have? And they've ripped off some of the stuff that we had for the Korean memorial with crowbars. And there's no security cameras to show any destruction up there. So you're going to build these beautiful parks, and nothing's going to happen to secure them. So,
I know there are security cameras as part of the high school scope, so we can take a look at how those will be aimed and directed, and we'll work with the city to see if additional security cameras are needed. So moving on to the Highland Ave Streetscape. So the idea with the streetscape is to provide a cohesive experience from Walnut all the way to School Street. Again, we'll be using city standards for some of the elements, including the lighting, the seating, and the trash and recycling receptacles. And we're looking at a pattern that we can use to highlight the fact that you're on campus on Highland Ave. So we've been studying some paving patterns and different ways to treat the walkway to give it some interesting texture and make it a little more unique than walking down just the city sidewalk. One of the other elements that we're incorporating are stormwater rain gardens along the streetscape. So these areas here and at the mid-block crossings, so that these are examples of what that will look like. So there's an area, you know, as you park your car, open your door, step out onto the curb, and they'll be filled with perennials and grasses and things to help the water and stormwater infiltrate into the ground. And then again, we'll be incorporating street tree species on both sides of the sidewalk that will complement the existing species and help diversify the trees that are there. We know that there are some ash there that are under threat, so we don't want to continue that pattern.
Can I say the city has had a history of planting all the same kinds of trees, which is wonderful until some pest comes and then they're all wiped out. I'd also like to put in a pitch for native trees and native plants there.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So we find these rain gardens a little bit of an opportunity to capture more stormwater and mitigate it before it gets back into the city's stormwater system. As part of the high school project, there were rooftop collection systems incorporated. There is rainwater harvesting, areas of porous or permeable pavement that will allow the stormwater to infiltrate. We have a couple of underground detention systems that will again allow the stormwater to infiltrate before overflowing into the city system. And so we will be adding additional areas of porous pavement on campus and the streetscape rain gardens. So the areas in blue.
Sorry, can you go back to that slide before? The trees all have like shadows around them. Why is that?
Oh, it's probably hard to see from where you are. Those are just in the background. I was just trying to show the larger trees in the
Okay,
background.
sorry. I was
No,
like,
that's okay.
the trees have ghosts? What?
So the areas in blue along the street, and then we were able to at least capture a couple more areas within the campus. We'll hold stormwater for up to 24 hours or so and allow it to infiltrate into the ground instead of running off into the street and into the system. This area of light beige color is permeable paving being installed by the high school scope, and we want to expand upon that. So the darker areas are additional permeable paving that again will allow the stormwater to infiltrate as opposed to running into the city storm system. The rain gardens and the additional permeable paving being installed by the Central Hill campus will mitigate the 100-year storm by an additional 5% over what the high school project is doing.
Can I say something again? Sorry.
Sure.
So in front of the memorial, the War Memorial, or whatever you're calling it, that's all right now. There's a narrow strip of pavement, but the rest of it is grass. And then where the playground is again essential. There's a little bit of sidewalk, but it's mostly either sandbox or sandbox. And then all of the library lawn, most of it again is all lawn. So you're losing a lot of naturally permeable stuff. What are the proportions of what is naturally permeable now, or was a year ago, versus the permeability you're striving for here?
I don't have those numbers right now, but I can.
It would be helpful, because I think you're losing, even though you're building in some, I think you're losing an awful lot that went down into our water system.
It's definitely a loss of impermeable surface. Remember, there's no parking in that area, so
True,
you're
true.
really regaining a lot of green space.
Okay, so you think that it's
Absolutely.
equivalent or better?
You have to by the city's
Okay.
goals.
I didn't mention the parking lot, you're absolutely right.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. What is the little dotted line that's like going around and then it's sort of a nook next to, on the right-hand side of the library? There's like a little rectangle carved out there.
Down.
Yeah, what's
Down
that?
to the right, down to the right.
Yeah, that right where you are.
Oh, there.
Yeah, what's that?
So currently there is a transformer that's sitting right here, and we are hoping to be able to relocate that out from in front. So it's just where you would literally,
That's where the transformer's going?
I'm sorry.
So that's where the transformer's going?
Is the dotted line just all of the phase one area, right? Is the dotted line is the phase one area that you're doing? Is that what the red dotted line is?
Yeah. Sorry, just one more thing. So the library has 2 raised bed gardens that are right where those transformers are planning to be moved. Yep, we should make sure you know. We love them. We want to keep them. We can move them though. Yeah. And we want more, yeah. We want more.
We want more.
Don't worry. We want more.
Yes, so Streetscape. We've been working with Tool Design Group as a consultant. They've been looking and studying traffic patterns, and Stephanie Wire with Tool will tell you about their efforts for the crossings and intersection improvements.
Hello everyone, again my name is Stephanie, I'm from Tool Design. As part of the master plan process, we looked at all modes of travel, walking, biking, driving, transit, how are people getting there, where are they coming from, what are the main needs. Covering a number of different topics, including traffic calming needs, and some of the grade challenges for cyclists and pedestrians, how the community path is moving through the site and crossings needed, future potential traffic patterns to take into account, and also bus stops. A lot of those things I'm not going to talk about tonight since they don't fit in with phase one work. As part of the community feedback we gathered during the planning process, really the main points that were pulled out were locations for crosswalks, dangerous intersections. Those were both our priority for phase one as a safety issue and also just because it fits with the improvements spatially made as part of phase one elsewhere on the site. So these were just different places, different people that responded and the concerns they had, just kind of shown on a map. So all around the site you can see, I'll just point it here, proposed new crossings in the solid rectangles, crossing improvements for crossings that already exist. So one of these is down in front of the War Memorial Building now. Everything in purple is what's going into phase one. And I have 3 examples of those crossings to show you tonight. These other 2 here will be coming through the GLX project. And then these other crossings will be addressed in later phases. So on Highland Avenue, which just for point of reference, we have people moving north of Walnut, the signalized intersection, and then Vinyl going south. We have 2 proposed curb extension crosswalks, or well, this is existing, the crossing now, but we're adding curb extensions to it. It's moving just very slightly to also fit with the axis of the whole memorial design. And then the crossing to the right is a newly proposed one. In both of these, they'll have curb extensions that really shorten the crossing distance for pedestrians. They allow you to kind of stand out where traffic, motor vehicle traffic can see you past any parked cars or anything else on the sidewalk. So they really increase visibility and can help slow motor vehicles down. And just in detail, the one under the War Memorial Building, this one, because it's also in between 2 bus stops, this one will get a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. What you see here, you maybe been seeing these around Cambridge and Somerville. Basically somebody comes up to the crosswalk, the light comes on and flashes as they cross. This will be really helpful for nighttime. And it kind of covers 2 ends of more activity from bus stops, but also there's doors on both sides of the building here, so it's kind of capturing that flow of pedestrian traffic. And Medford and Walnut Street intersection, let's see, so you're going north, again, this is if you're looking in this direction, this picture here of the current existing condition. This one, you're looking up Medford that way. those are both what exists now. So you can see kind of wide crossing along, and what we're doing is proposing, I can't see the red light, so I'll just keep pointing, proposing to pull the curb out, in no way restricting cars and how they can turn. They will probably, or definitely be encouraged to slow down because there's now a sidewalk out in the roadway. But so we have curb extensions here and along here. So it pretty much narrows down the roadway on these sides. We cannot put them over there due to all the boundaries of the property there and allowing cars to continue to make that right turn movement. The other thing that happens with curb extensions besides narrowing the crossings is, what was the point I was going to make about that? Oh, the crossings we can now kind of make more directional. Right now they're apex crossings, so they all kind of come to the same point. And the tactile strips for people with vision disabilities are a little bit harder to understand what direction they should be going in. So these tend to make much more clear which way people should be walking off the sidewalk.
Excuse me, could you go back to the first one?
Here?
No, the first crosswalk.
Oh, the first crosswalk.
I'm sorry, no, I wasn't
Here?
clear. Yeah, so I understand where that crosswalk is, but to the left is the crosswalk where the traffic light is, where the intersection of School Street and Highland Street is.
Sorry.
So if you...
So School Street's way over here.
Oh, okay, I thought that was where the honor roll was right now, the new crosswalk.
That's where the oval is.
Yeah, that's further down. So it is a little confusing, I agree. We're just looking at the extent of the War
Right.
Memorial Building here, so school is about over
Okay,
there.
so that crosswalk still exists.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
and in fact, there's school. So this was the limit of what we're just seeing.
Oh, okay,
There's
so you're
school.
not talking about that one right there, the second one there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this will be an added one.
Okay,
Yeah.
without a light, just crosswalk.
Well, we're going to be taking a look at it in the future.
Okay.
So we'll.
Because there's
look at
also
it.
a bus stop right there.
Right. Yep. So the bus stops will be coordinated in the future as well. Okay.
Can I ask a question about transportation? It's probably too late to bring this up, it was probably something for the first meeting, but what was the discussion, if any, about having better, safer bicycle access along Highland? Because I ride along Highland and it's so narrow and there's so many buses and the sidewalks are so wide, I wish they could have the kind of bike lane on the sidewalk like they do on Beacon, but I know there's also a lot of high schoolers, so there maybe there's too many pedestrians, but was there any discussion of that?
There was, and we struggled with that one too. The problem is when you have parking on both sides of the roadway, it remains a narrow enough roadway. You only get a lane on one side, which when you prioritize how do you make it safe for people on both sides to get up into the campus. The assumption is that, people who are uncomfortable riding on the road, they can use the sidewalk pretty much. So that doesn't help your fast cyclists who want to move along. The assumption is they have the confidence to keep going along Highland.
Well, you're not supposed to bicycle on the sidewalk, right? Unless you're a kid, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a, informal understanding, but that was the assumption made.
If I can plug a future possible meeting, the Spring Hill Sewer Separation Project covers a huge expanse of Ward 3. Engineering is looking at some new cross sections for a whole bunch of roads that travel through Somerville, such as Highland, School, Summer, Central, Elm,
So they are definitely planning some future community meetings related to that work. So we would love to have you in the future.
Are those scheduled yet, or?
I don't believe that they're scheduled yet, but it will be coming pretty quickly.
Thanks.
Any other questions on this one?
Okay. So I'm gonna quickly go over, before we take any additional questions, just to reiterate the timeline. So we really are anxious to start phase 1 construction in spring 2020. Some announcements that I should make you aware of: the current Central Hill playground. The high school will need to start working in that location. Probably they're targeting the end of October, beginning of November. And that's the time period that Central Hill Playground will close until we can reopen with the new playground in 2021. So as I said, we are going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of the technical documents after this meeting. I would love to hear feedback. We can take some time to answer further questions. And you guys can always email me. I'm Courtney Kirk. It's CKIRK Kirk at somervillema.gov. I'm happy to answer any questions if you think of them later. Happy to help. So with that, any questions? Yes.
I'd just like to have the city reconsider the concept of putting a splash pad in the playground right outside the library. I think that is a terrible idea. As a librarian myself, as a mom of 3, I get wanting to have splash pads all over the city. We have a lot of them already. But that library is a very tired building that has not been renovated in decades. It cannot practically handle all of what goes into having children run around in a splash pad and then go into a building full of books and other people who are trying to use that space. So from a practical standpoint, I think that is not a great idea for this particular playground, just because of where it's located. If we had a library that could withstand that kind of play, that would be great, but we don't, and I don't think that's a great idea. So that's my comment on that. And my second question is, how many spaces are you looking at for the library drop-off? And in that area where you said there was going to be some sort of like short window period of time drop-off spaces.
So to talk a little bit about splash pads, the splash pad that we've been talking about with the design team, I would call it a very minimal splash pad. It's not, I would say, as adventurous as the one in Lincoln Park. We have a very, if I could use an example, I would say the playground at Baxter Riverfront Park in Assembly Row. It has a very small sort of 3 frogs that kind of squirt a small stream of water. That was something that was developed with the developers in the shopping area where they had similar concerns that they didn't want wet kids coming into all of the stores and the restaurants.
Those are private places who can actually say, no, you cannot come into this space. That's a lot more challenging when you're talking about a city public building, and in fact, one of the only public buildings in the city. And as a mother of 3 under 10, I understand that it's a small amount of water, but you could have this amount of water and my kids will make a disaster in a confined space. So I just think that you should rethink that, because this is not a building that can withstand, that's a whole other discussion, but this is not a building that can really withstand that kind of activity. And unless we're talking about renovating the library and, in due course, to withstand that, then I don't think that's a great idea for that particular area.
And your second question about the drop-off for the library. So this area will accommodate deliveries and basically 2 car lengths. And then this whole concourse area can also be considered a drop-off for the library.
So when we have like story time and things like that, where we have like groups of people coming by van from the various daycares around the city, is there a place for them to park that van for, because this sounds more like a 15-minute like drop off my book, pick up some books. Is there a place for them to park?
Do you guys know how the concourse is going to work for the high school?
The intention of the concourse of the high school is for just dropping and leaving. It's not meant for long-term parking, it's meant for live parking only, other than accessibility, those kinds of demands. So it is intended that down the road, the back of the library would remain as that parking area, and how that would be used, I guess that would be.
I think we can look at it a little bit more so we can make sure that we're accommodating people that get to the library via the ride and any sort of small, I guess, van type minibus situation.
I'm just very concerned, I know we've discussed this at the last meeting, but I'm really concerned about people being able to come to the library and stay for a period of time, because with all the plans that I've seen so far, there's not really anywhere for people to park, especially in those scenarios where you're coming with like a van of people and you're staying for longer than a 15-minute drop-off. And I think this area is so congested already with teachers trying to park and city workers trying to park all throughout the day, that I'm worried that people aren't going to be able to come and enjoy that space, the playground, the library, you know, the war memorials. They're not going to have anywhere to park their car for a period of time to enjoy those spaces.
We can definitely look further into having space for vans and what that process should look like.
I'm Karen. I mostly came to always come to these meetings to talk about the trees, so I guess I have to say I'm like happy to see only 2, which I mean, just want to put it on the record that there were at least 40 other trees that have come down before. So, and that was in June, I think. So, and I think even before that, before I started really paying attention, I think even more, but somebody could correct me. So overall, this is definitely a net loss of huge trees, but at least right now, not more damage hugely is being done, although other people that care about trees in the city might also want those 2 to be saved. So I'm happy, and I hope to see that. I really appreciate the map that really clearly delineated which trees were there and which ones were going to be removed, so thank you. I will support your splash pad. There's no reason, as a parent, I don't care about splash pads. I can go to a different place for a splash pad, so I will support your statement on that. And I've also been really concerned about parking. I mean, if libraries are supposed to support the elderly and kids and families, and I'm a huge proponent of public transportation and of walking and biking, but still, it's like you can't expect that from people that are going to be going up a hill to get to a library. And I really think there needs to be a discussion about more parking if they can keep the parking lot in the back, although that would be still hard, I think, with accessibility issues, but more like, it's not just dropping off kids. You can't just drop off. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tori Antonino. I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Committee. I'm an ecological landscaper. And so my big concerns are the health of the residents in the community. The kids will be going to the high school, and you guys who work there, and the livability of the planet. So could we look at like some of the landscape areas? So what I see here is a rather sterile landscape. When we just consider the overstory of a forest, we are missing out on all the layers of a forest, and that's where you get so much biodiversity. And I was thinking of Melissa, that's where you get a lot of the volume, and that's where you'll get, you know, the different pollinator species and the birds that are in such decline.
So we want to provide a variety of seating types because everybody likes to enjoy their own type of seating. So envisioning some cafe tables and chairs and perhaps...
Can you show where on the plan those things will be?
Yeah, perhaps some lounge seating, and that will be in these plaza areas in front of the library. Similar to what you have now, the little cafe tables and chairs can also be spread out into the lawn a little bit. Over to this side will be additional seating on some stepped decking like, you know, as you see here. Of course, we'll have open lawn seating, bring your blanket, bring your book. Looking at some movable seats that are very easy to pick up and move around. Again, for the lawn seat, we know story time is a popular event at the library. Even within the play area, I don't have that picture here, but there's an opportunity again to have a semicircle seating configuration for story time opportunity there. So, you know, the idea is just to really have a variety of seating for all the different users and to be able to make the seating how you want to use it.
Well, one of the things now is the seating is under the tree canopy and it's shaded in the summer. And if you pull it up against the building, who maintains those umbrellas? Is that something the library has to do, to go out every morning and set up the umbrellas?
I think if we have umbrellas, we'll have to discuss that further with the library.
Yeah, we may not.
Because it's not very comfortable to be up against that south face of the library.
Right.
It's really hot.
Yeah, and we're working to add additional trees there to provide a little bit more shade.
But then we get back into the question, more trees, less visibility for the building. And in some ways, you seem to have created this romantic English landscape for this Italianate building. And we don't have any more sense of an access towards the building. From the west, you're blocked by the playground. From the east and Walnut Street, the pathway curves around, and it's again hidden by trees. It seems like it's a very romantic idea, but it doesn't really lend itself to understandability by people who want to know where the library is. And you look like you recognize I made the comment, but there's also, you look like you aren't going to make any effort to readdress that. So is that the case, that these comments are...
Well, if I can address some of the straight axial pathways that are currently in front of the library, they are currently not accessible to everyone. So because we have this 6+ feet of grade change from Highland up to the library and the high school, the curved walkways really help everybody be able to access the buildings without having to use specifically a ramp or a set of stairs, that we can have sloped walkways and have a little bit more of a gentle entrance to our public buildings.
Did you say that there's going to be like a new big sign? Is there not a sign already? And was that one of the things you said? There was going to be a new sign on the corner? Maybe that will help? Maybe should there be more signs? Oh, there's already a sign. I just know the library is there, so I don't pay attention for the sign.
So the, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so the main library sign is going to be on the corner of Highland and Walnut here, marking the back corner as a library.
How high is the sign?
That's a good question. It's pretty large.
Are you working with the garden club to relocate the perennials that are in front of? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Because I know they worked really hard to move a lot of them from the
I've
West
been in
Branch.
contact with the Somerville Garden Club. From what I understand, the plants, a lot of the plants in front of the library right now came from the West Branch Library. So I think there's gonna be some swapping of plants, and they're also definitely planning for certain things to be divided for their next plant sale. I'm trying to keep them in the loop so they can take things instead of them getting put in a dumpster by a contractor.
I know they're very protective.
Yes.
I mostly came to ask for monkey bars at the playground. I appreciate the desire to have kind of a natural looking playground, but some traditional equipment like monkey bars gives our kids an opportunity to be athletic at the park. Some of us who have children who are on the younger end, toddlers, are coming with their older siblings and they want to be able to enjoy the park together, and that's a challenge when you're designing a park, but monkey bars are something that can occupy older kids for a really long time. And I wanted to express support for a splash pad, and I definitely get the concern about the library. Maybe a sign at the library asking people not to come in when they're wet might be a solution, but there are a lot of splash pads around Somerville, but not many in our neighborhood. And when you don't have air conditioning and it's 95 degrees, to get your children to agree to go down to Walnut Park and then up the hill, all three of them in the heat in the sun, when they're already at home in 95 degrees, is not easy. So we don't have something like that right in our neighborhood. And in the summertime, it's important. It's gonna get hot.
Glad you brought that up, because the library is actually a cooling center in the summertime. So that is one of the reasons why parking is such a huge deal for us, is that there is no way for people to actually go and spend time in the library, where it is actually the only cooling center that's open on the weekends in Somerville. So, I mean, to your point, I understand, I have kids myself, I get it. And my worry is, as a librarian, and worried about how old this building is, and whether or not it can withstand that, and also for our librarians in the building to have to monitor that all day long is a huge burden when they're already having to, be the public face for the city of Somerville. So I totally take your point, and I add to it that is a big concern as a cooling center as well.
I just wanted to say about the axial, I understand your concern about the library being a very symmetrical axial thing, but I think it doesn't terminate a view from a street, for example, and it doesn't have like a big axial procession leading up to it. So to me, the fact that you kind of approach it obliquely along the paths seems to make sense. And I think a lot of people are going to be walking along the sidewalk of Highland before they turn in, so they're not going to be like if that was on access with Walnut or something, then it would make sense to have a nice linear procession to the library, but it seems not as important here. But I hope someday that the library could restore their main entryway, which is raked over because it's such a travesty. So that will emphasize the library more. You can have a big entry there.
Yeah, part of the master plan, if you look at the full document, there is planning for an addition in the rear, and I would hope that any internal and external work would be restorative in the front, and with an addition in the back, I'm sure there will be new routes to access the library from Medford Street. I think there's a lot of possibility in the future.
I don't support the splash pad, but I would love to see an outdoor water fountain or drinking area for dogs. But like for humans and dogs, for both. I work at the library, and we have a lot of homeless folk that come in, and I hate to think about what happens to them in the summer when the library is not open. So I just think having access to water, drinking water, is really, really important, and I would love it.
It's standard for our parks to include a drinking fountain. I think the only thing about water outdoors is that it does shut down for winter time, so it doesn't freeze up. And the same, that would go for the splash pad as well. It's only operational during summertime when the water pipes don't freeze.
Parks. Did we talk before about how the DPW will provide porta potties at certain parks under certain conditions? And so will this park be of those conditions so that porta potties, because the library is not open all of the time and in the summer, right? Not on Sundays.
No,
You
no.
don't want to have to be the I don't know if you want to even be the place where people use the bathrooms for the park.
So the city they conducted a porta potty study, and they looked at all the playgrounds and prioritized those that don't have a proximate location to a public building. And through their decision tree, the Central Hill Playground does not meet the requirements for a porta potty because of the library and the high school and city hall being all in close proximity.
But not open on Sundays. Unless can you get in the high school on weekends? On Sundays?
Depends on the activity.
Yeah.
Depends on the activity, those certainly will be more activity than you see there.
Yeah, we definitely need more indoor civic space, especially during the summer. It just can't be all in the library, you know.
Any remaining questions? Well, we have I think 7 minutes left until 8 if you're holding your schedule until 8. But thank you all for coming. I appreciate all your feedback. And as I said, we're going to tighten up all the design and have a final public meeting. And if you have any questions, you can contact me, Courtney Kirk, at ckirk, K-I-R-K, @somervillema.gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you.